Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new edition of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod Prugar. He is Kevin Quigley. Kevin, this is the battle for the Land-Grant Trophy. It is the most prestigious trophy in all of college football. It is the ugliest trophy in all of college football. And these are two teams that are bringing absolutely ugly records and ugly seasons right into the game. And it couldn't be a greater euphemism for what we're about to see Saturday afternoon in East Lansing, Michigan, on national television.
Yeah, for sure. Both teams are riding a six game losing streak, which if you had told me 2 months ago that was going to be happening, I would tell you no way in hell that's possible. Yeah, both programs are back against the wall. They both have 3 games left. They're both 3-6, which means they both need to win out to become bowl eligible. I think the pathway for Penn State is considerably easier, considering that they are Penn State and they still do have the talent on the roster to do. They still have the talent on the roster to be way better than the 3-6 record indicates. And also they just have the talent to overcome this. We saw it against Indiana, legitimate chance to win. We saw it against Iowa, again, a legitimate chance to win. Both times came down the last possession and the opposing team scored to take the lead with minimal time left on the clock. So this team has been very, very close to against Iowa, which was a ranked opponent, very, very close against Indiana, which was the number 2 team in the country. And now 3-6 Michigan State's next up. And it's, hopefully there's no sort of letdown or defeatedism. But if you're Ethan Grunkemeyer in the offense, like this is a reprieve for you. You faced 3 top 10 defenses the last 3 weeks, which was Ethan Grunkemeyer's first 3 starts in his college career. And now you're not facing one of the top 10 defenses in the country. I don't know where they're ranked. It's not very good. But the level of talent of this opponent is considerably less than what Penn State has faced over the last 3 weeks. You could say Ohio State wasn't competitive. It was decently competitive there for a little bit, like Penn State had their moments. But you can definitely say that they could have and should have probably won both of the games against Iowa and Indiana. Unfortunately, they came up short. So while the teams both have a 3-6 record, I think this is definitely advantage Penn State here.
100%. And I think the biggest thing, listen, I love Terry Smith. I think Terry Smith has got a place on this staff for as long as he wants to coach. And I do think that he is going to be a part of the next staff, whoever that might be. He's going to be the bridge that ties it all together, whether that's as a general manager or an assistant coach or assistant head coach or what. So no matter who that is, and we'll talk about that in the second segment, Terry Smith has got to be on the staff. But this dude is all about it, man. And I love seeing everything that he is saying. And he's saying all of the right stuff outside of Liam Clifford at quarterback. My mind is not ready for the Liam Clifford experience. But that's also where we're at as far as this season. But, he's saying about this team emptying the clip. He's saying about this team, throwing the ball down the field. And that's exactly what they did, against Indiana. They had Indiana on the ropes. I mean, Indiana had to perform perfectly and execute perfectly to win that game. And they're the number 2 team in the country for a reason. Kirsten Yetty's doing a great job at Indiana. And I think there's value in that. The run game is getting better. They're playing more gap sound, more gap accountable. And I think Terry Smith has a better grasp on everything that he has to do as a head coach too. We forget, and maybe we don't forget, but we kind of tend to put it in the back burner. But this is a dude that's been a career assistant coach at the college level. Obviously, he was a head coach and AD at Gateway up until he came to Penn State, or before he came to Penn State, I should say, because I think he spent some time at Temple. But it's tough to go from an assistant to head coach immediately. That's the one thing that I think that James Franklin always deserves credit is how polished he was at the minutiae, those details that you don't really think about, the travel itineraries, what the coaches are wearing on the sidelines, those little things that you don't think about, but they add up, that the head coach is responsible for, these media briefings and things like that. And say what you will about what some of the things that Franklin has said, but he always handled that rather well. Talking to some people in the program, some things have quite not necessarily fallen by the wayside, but they're not necessarily a focus, right? Usually you get travel itinerary earlier in the season or earlier in the week. They've been getting it later. such is life. I mean, either way, you're flying charter, no matter where you're going. But yeah, so just little things like that. But man, he's talking about emptying the clip. He's talking about going out there, and these guys still want to play for him. This team could have folded, and they should have folded. Let's be real. They're 3-6. They are a loss away from not going to a bowl game after being in the college football semifinal, being a drive away from the national championship game last year. So that team has come a long way. This team has come a long way under Terry Smith. And this is, again, two teams that, listen, Michigan State is Michigan State right now. They are struggling. They just vacated wins. They just had the hammer come down with them in the NCAA, which is because of Mel Tucker and everything just kind of exploding, I guess, pun intended for him, for all of that. Hey, listen, it is what it is. But, call a spade a spade. But Mel Tucker, they had to vacate wins. That means that game against CMU, that's Connor Stallions, was on the sideline. Poof, that game is now not a win for Michigan State. Jonathan Smith, their head coach, now has no Big Ten wins. They vacated wins from 22, 23, and 24 because of 3 illegal players that they paid or did something far more egregious than stealing signs and winning championships. But Michigan State didn't have any expectations coming into the season. So 3-6, winning against their 2 FCS opponents and Boston College, their group of 4. That means they're one more game stronger than Penn State right now, because they have a group of 4 win in their belt. But there were 0 expectations for Michigan State. The expectations for Penn State were a national championship or bust. It's definitely been a busted season for them. But this is a perfect opportunity to right the ship and get some momentum and carry that momentum that you finished that Indiana game with and carry it into the rest of the season.
Yeah, certainly. I just looked it up while you were talking. Michigan State is 114th ranked scoring defense in the country. So if you're Penn State, all eyes are on the green, all eyes are on pay dirt there. So hopefully, the defense, the Michigan State's offense is nothing to be worried about compared to the Mendoza line and then Ohio State's prolific passing attack. So, hopefully it's just a riding on the ship. And then just to echo everything you said about Terry Smith, like the way this program has not just tucked its tail and gone and laid in the corner it's a credit to him. It's a credit to the players. Granted, there's money on the line. Like in the NIL era, we may be saying the same things. No, probably not. But also in the NIL era, none of these guys are back. Like Drew's gone after last year. Singleton's gone after last year. Allen's gone after last year. Zaki Wheatley's gone after last year. AJ Harris has probably gone after last year. Like so many of these guys had all in seasons last year, put it all out there, came up 1 drive short. And then all of a sudden everyone got together and was like, you know what? We're going to run it back. Like, let's go do this thing. So credit to them because obviously, like, the messaging from Terry Smith is coming across the board because as you're a college kid, you and I are both in college once. We probably didn't make the best choices day in and day out. Like you could make the choice to lay down, but Terry Smith can probably say some messaging of, like you still have draft stock that matters. Like they have agents now. Maybe the agents in their ear to tell them, hey, like you do still have everything to play for. So credit to them, whoever's in the room, whoever the voices are in the head of these players to get them ready to come out. And I'm just hopeful that, what we see 3:30 Saturday afternoon on CBS ends up as being a win for Penn State. We'll see how it goes. I feel kind of funny, but kind of bad for CBS that they paid all that money to get the Big Ten showdowns at 3:30 p.m. on CBS, and they end up with a 3-6 Penn State and a 3-6 Michigan State. So kind of a cool thing to see that the network's having to, maybe.
Listen, Kevin, I'm sorry. I'm interrupting you. This is the first time I'm actually interrupting you because I think you're absolutely full of it. This is the greatest game of all time, Kevin. This is 3-6 versus 3-6, a battle of perfection, or defeating perfection because both teams are winless in the Big Ten and they're battling for the most prestigious trophy of all time in the Land-Grant Trophy. This is the Land-Grant Trophy. This game deserves to be 3:30 on CBS. That's what the sickos want. That's what we all want as college football fans for this trophy on national TV in all of its glory because as ugly as that trophy is, these two teams' season are absolutely just as ugly, if not uglier.
Sure. Just tell that to
I
Liberty.
love this. I love this trophy.
Just tell that to Liberty Mutual, who's probably being like, "You want how much money for a commercial in this game?"
And that also,
no
speaks
shot.
to the brand of Penn State too.
It does.
No matter how bad they might be, Penn State's brand does carry. Like I love a bunch of things in my life, but most importantly, my wife and children, and the land grant trophy. So obviously, this is a big week for me. I wish I could be going out to East Lansing someday. I will make it out to there, but you're right. I mean, it is probably not what CBS bargained for per se, but that's kind of the weirdness and obscurity of college football in these media rights, right? I mean, you're seeing. Speaking of media rights, but Paul Skeens and Cy Young, we're recording this on Wednesday night, so kudos to him. Former Altoona Curve, great for Paul Skeens, great for the Pirates. Hopefully, that means they'll win more than just 80 games in a season. But to see, I mean, we see this all the time now. USC and Michigan State might not opt in to this capital thing that the Big Ten is doing. I haven't really paid attention to it, but if you think about it, it's so bizarre. We have these big time crazy conferences, but to look at the Big Ten this week, Minnesota at Oregon, that's Friday night. And we'll talk about some of these during our picks. Big noon, or I'm sorry, not even big noon, but Wisconsin, Indiana is on Big Ten Network at noon. Michigan's at Northwestern at Wrigley Field. That's big noon. Iowa's at USC. That's 3:30 BTN. I don't know how that's not a bigger game. Obviously, Land-Grant Trophy game. Then you got Maryland, Illinois, Purdue, Washington, and UCLA, Ohio State, and that's going to be on NBC. So, I mean, really, of all those games, the only one that I would maybe switch is Penn State, Michigan State, and Iowa and USC. But, that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles as far as, who gets their pick.
Yeah. Sorry, I just need to pivot to this because it popped in my head while we were talking about this. Can we talk about the bottom 25 rankings that come out every week? They're unofficial. It's just some buffoon of a CBS sports writer. Penn State is not a bottom 25 team in the country this year. Their record might be bad, but you cannot say after the performance of the last 3 weeks that is any sort of indication that they are below the rank of 100 in the NCAA. I'm not putting them in the top 50. They might be in that 75 to 100 range, but I'm not sure that there's. I think Colorado's one rank better than them. Michigan State's a couple ranks worse than them. I'm hoping that Saturday looks like an absolute beatdown for Penn State because I think the program does need a little bit of respect. Yes, they are in the toilet. Their season has been awful so far, but good God Almighty, that's just flat out disrespectful.
Yeah, I mean, if they were getting destroyed every game, every week, I could see it. But they're in these games. I mean, they're just a player or two away in each of the in 5 of the 6 losses. Outside of Ohio State, and honestly, a couple of things here or there, and that's a completely different game too. But that's the way this season has gone for Penn State. That's why they're in the situation they're in. Obviously, Saturday a must win. The next 3 games are must wins for Penn State the rest of the way, and then hopefully we get to hire a coach sometime within the next few weeks or so, and I think that's going to happen. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back for the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast. He's Kevin, I'm Jarrod. Kevin, Penn State still doesn't have a full-time head coach. It's currently interim head coach Terry Smith, who's done an admirable job keeping his team together. He's offering recruits, which means to me he's going to be a part of the next staff no matter what. The recruiting aspect of it has been a disaster because people are committed to Franklin or just want greener pastures or whatever they might have, right? And I think there's, it's just one of those deals where that's the way that things are at the moment in college football. Which means Penn State's got to move fast. And every coach that's worth a damn is still coaching and is going to still be coaching well into December and possibly January. And I think that's what sucks about it. The way that the market, I guess, if you will, dictates what's going on. Early signing day in December, The college football playoff is in December. It's just a bad time. The transfer portal, the changing of the semesters for colleges, and it's just part of it. But Penn State is going to have to hire sooner rather than later, and that means one team's problem is they're going to have to find a new coach, just like Penn State is. Does that mean it's Brian Hartline? Does that mean it's Mike Elko? Is that Jeff Brom? Is that Eli Drinkwitz? I don't know. Can they lure Elko back to the Northeast? I don't know. It would take a lot of money, and I think Penn State, Pat Kraft has given every indication that he does not care about money to an extent that he will pay and offer to pay anybody and everybody to come up there, to come to Penn State or leave Penn State if he sees fit. So there is that aspect of it. Are they going to be a good fit culturally? Obviously, again, like I said, I'm very interested to see, and this is something that James Franklin did, especially later in his tenure at Penn State, surrounding himself with Penn State guys. You have Trace McSorley, who's on the staff. You have Deion Barnes, who's on the staff. Terry Smith has obviously been on the staff since James Franklin's outset. Dan Connor, guys like that are around the program, and even guys that are behind the scenes. But who's it going to be, and who's going to, I think, be kept? But it comes down to Penn State making that decision. Who can they get, and who can they get to go away from a team that's potentially playing for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think, things that we're potentially hearing is that, all signs really are kind of pointing towards Elko. $7 million a year. He's got 3 or 4. I think he's got 4 years left on his deal. He signed a 6-year deal, so after this season, he would have 4 years remaining. The buyout would be 75% of what's left to it, of what is owed to him. If he leaves before 3 years is up, so Penn State would owe 75% of $42 million minus 14, which is what, 28. So they'd owe 75% of that. But he kind of checks all the boxes. Like you said, he's a New Jersey guy. He's from the Princeton area. I believe South Brunswick is his official township there, which is 3-hour drive. I think we covered that on Sunday night. 3-hour drive from State College. It sounds like he wants to come back to the Northeast. Texas isn't for everybody. College Station, Texas isn't for everybody. And if you're Mike Elko, that's probably really your first venture that far away from home. Spent a lot of his early coaching career in New York and Virginia for a little bit. Ends up at Bowling Green. Does go to Texas A&M for a little bit, for a couple of years, but then comes right back to Duke when he gets the head coaching job. Was pretty successful for Duke. Riley Leonard looked really good under him, and then his second season, Mike Elko, unfortunately, Riley Leonard sprained his ankle pretty bad, if I recall correctly, and he missed 4 or 6 weeks, and that kind of just derailed the Duke season. First year, they didn't really play any ranked teams, and I believe they went 0-4 against ranked teams the second year, but a lot of that was without Riley Leonard. Comes back to Texas A&M. You look at what he's done there. First game out is a close loss at home against Notre Dame, but follows it up later in the season with 2 top 10 wins. This year he is 1-0 against Notre Dame, so that's a top 10 win. And then that's his only top 10 win this year, but then ranked wins against LSU and Missouri. Again, winning games that he should, but no one really picked A&M to be able to go into South Bend, Indiana and upset Notre Dame. If I recall correctly, that spread was double digits in favor of the Fighting Irish. They ended up eking out a 1-point win there. So they're 9-0. They've got 3 games left in their season, all very winnable games. The only tough opponent they have is Texas left on the schedule. They get to avenge their loss against South Carolina this weekend. That's a noon kick for that one. So, and then from a Penn State perspective, Adidas is coming on board. Guess who sponsors Texas A&M apparel? Adidas. Kind of want to get away from the offensive mindset of coach. Mike Elko's a defensive guy. So the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I hear about it, it's like all signs. I'm kind of putting all my eggs on the Mike Elko basket. The problem is like you mentioned, the way Texas A&M looks, like this is not probably a mid-December hire. Maybe it's an after New Year's hire if he doesn't make the Final Four. They're probably going to have a bye. And then the national championship game is January 19th. which is after the portal closes. So the best hope would be that, the new coach has 5 days to keep the players at Texas A&M. Maybe after that 5 days, it opens up and, there's a flood of Texas A&M players coming to State College. They've got to something has to be done fast. And unfortunately for Elko, time is not on his side because there's not going to be a freshman class this year just because the way everything's going. Pretty much all the recruits have decommitted. If you're a recruit and you're wanting to come out of school, why are you committing to Terry Smith if you don't know what the future holds? So kind of the burden of the playoff now, and we both liked the revision of the transfer portal to only be in one window and be in that right before the college football playoff ends. But there's always been the concern of what if your team is in the college football playoff. So, we'll see how it goes from there.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's just so much uncertainty right now, and it's kind of the weird aspect of it all. But, if they're going to pay this amount of money, listen, I'm looking at the schedule for next year for A&M. I know that's not an end-all, be-all, but they host Arizona State. No slouches there with Kenny Dillingham. At Alabama, at LSU, at Missouri, at Oklahoma. LSU will have a new coach. Alabama should still have Kalen DeBoer. Oklahoma's not an easy place to play. At South Carolina, that's not an easy away game schedule. And then they're home against Arkansas with a new coach. Tennessee and Texas. So, I mean, next year is not a fun year if you're A&M on paper. But, I mean, it's just one of those situations where what is Penn State willing to do? And, you break it down between Elko, Jeff Brom is a name. I mean, he's been in the Big Ten before. He's at his alma mater now. And I think there's a value. It's the same thing with Brent Key at Georgia Tech. And that's kind of why he's fallen off. He's getting an extension. They're talking about Brom getting an extension. Does Penn State get a commission on some of these extensions? It's something that I would like to know. Because, I mean, a lot of these guys are absolutely getting paid. And for good reason, right? I mean, hey, good for them for taking advantage of it. But, looking at Penn State's schedule next year, you got Marshall, at Temple, Buffalo, at Maryland, at Michigan, at Northwestern. You host Minnesota, host Purdue, host Rutgers, host USC, host Wisconsin, and you're at Washington. That's right off the bat, if they can perform, I think that's probably a 10-win, 11-win schedule. If not, a potential to go undefeated depending on how things go and how this offseason goes. So, I mean, you look at that aspect of it, Big Ten, it's not like they have to play Ohio State. Is that a factor? His wife came out and said, we're not leaving. But I'm going to tell you this right now, this as a married man, if you get a raise and you tell your wife how much money you're going to make, and sometimes seeing green helps.
Yeah, and it could just be a matter of like, where's does she have family in the New Jersey area as well? I don't know where she's from, but if the opportunity is to move home, like moving home has a lot of gravitational pull. Texas A&M, of all the oil-rich schools in Texas, it feels like Texas A&M has the most oil money out there, just based off of what the university is. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it's just what it feels like. Like, of all the programs that throw around money, like Texas throws around a lot of money. I get it, but it just feels like A&M is just, I would say, even all that more reckless with it. Can Penn State outbid Texas A&M for coach? I don't know. I don't think so, but is Texas A&M willing to go to that $12 or $14 million a year number for a guy that's only been there 2 years? That I don't know. It gets complicated, though, if A&M goes to the national championship game or maybe even wins a national title. That's where I think this deal falls apart, is if they get to the final and maybe even have a chance of winning. I don't think A&M is a national title. I don't know if anybody's beating Ohio State this year. I'll put it that way. But if you go to the title game and you lose and then you leave town, like, do you care about the optics of that? Do you care about the imagery of that? I don't know. But again, still, I think coming home has a big pull. Penn State's Pat Kraft is more than willing to put up money. Adidas with the $300 million coming in, like, there's a lot of money floating around for this. And by next football season, that Adidas deal should be in play. Is that correct? It's July 2026 that it goes into effect.
Mm-hmm.
So by next football season, then Adidas money's rolling in, and now there is more money to pay the coach. So, if Penn State needs to go up into that $12 to $14 million range to go get Mike Elko, it's big number, probably the biggest number in the country. But if that's the guy, like sometimes you just got to go out and get him.
Looking at it's kind of funny doing a little bit of internet research here on Elko and his wife. They met at Penn State, so I'm not sure how or why that was in 2001. Obviously, looking back at some coaching situations here. He was at Penn at that time, and then went to the Merchant Marines. But I'm very interested to see kind of how that all came together, because he played at Penn. Obviously, he's a Pennsylvania guy. So she's from Jersey as well. So I mean, it's tough to say, and it's pure speculation. But I think it's down to Elko, Hartline, and I would say probably Brom. And I don't know that Brom's going to be that guy, because you have to get him away from his alma mater. And let's be really, ACC is much more winnable than the Big Ten. Even with all the resources at Penn State, you can be the dog for a long time if you do it right in the ACC.
Yeah, of all the power conferences left out there, ACC is by far the weakest. So if you're in the ACC and you can somewhat gain some traction, it's a good place to leave. You're big fish in a little pond over there, it seems. Whereas, quite frankly, like if you're coming to Penn State, like you're probably the third most endowed program, your third place in money, maybe even fourth place in money. You're going to have to build a program on tradition. You're going to have to build a program on player development and just culture. So you got to find the guy that can develop the best culture. So probably another name out there still is Manny Diaz. I think it's still a very outside shot.
He's the guy you're going to go with if everybody else falls through.
Yeah,
still
I
a defensive-minded guy. Great hire, I think, what he would be. He's doing okay at Duke. Duke's not an easy football school to win at. Obviously, they're overshadowed by their basketball program. Go Tar Heels! But it's just one of those situations. So there's still so much left to be determined. But we'll have all kinds of different news for you whenever we hear it here on the Lashing Out Podcast. But we're going to come back and talk about our picks for this weekend and what we expect to see around college football during the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. He's Kevin. I'm Jarrod. Kevin, let's get right to the picks before we wrap it up for the night.
All right, so obviously the first game we're going to pick, Penn State, Michigan State. Penn State, I believe, opened as a 6.5-point favorite, but they are now a 7.5-point favorite. Honestly, I feel like Penn State covers this game in a massive way. I mean, I'm hoping that it's 17 plus.
Penn State by double digits, without a doubt. That has to happen. We talked about it having to happen for 6 games now, but they need this one desperately.
Interesting game, mostly just because their coach is a buffoon. Not the Notre Dame coach and Marcus Freeman, but number 9, Notre Dame travels to number 22 Pitt. That is the site of College Game Day. Notre Dame is a 12.5-point favorite. And honestly, I think this gets way out of hand because Pat Narduzzi just can't get out of his own way. When you get asked of like, is this game a must win? You cannot answer with no, because Notre Dame's not a conference opponent. You have to understand this is a rivalry game, and no matter what, you want to go win the game on the field, regardless of who you're playing, regardless if this is a conference game. I want to get it in is this a win? Is this a must-win game? Every game's a must-win game. We got to go 1-0 every week. The James Franklin mentality. Like, we want to go out and beat Notre Dame. Like, you're not putting out bulletin board material, but you're like, no, we're just going to roll over and lose. We don't care. Like,
I love Pat Narduzzi, and I love Pat Narduzzi for this reason, because he just doesn't know when to shut up. People have been bashing. James Franklin disrespected Marcus Freeman, if you remember correctly, during the Orange Bowl media tour or media day or whatever, about the shade about joining a conference this, joining a conference that. If you're Notre Dame, why the hell would you join a conference? Right? Yeah. Like, it does you no good. If you are making enough money yourselves through your media deal with NBC, who gives a shit Like, let's be like, why? You know, I used to be like, oh, well, that'd be really, really fun to see that happen. But honestly, like these conferences are so watered down now because there are 20 or 18 to 20 teams. You know what? Good on you, Notre Dame. You know, I hate saying good things about Notre Dame. I respect the hell out of Marcus Freeman. I got Notre Dame, and I think they're going to blow the doors off of Pitt as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I said it out loud, but I definitely also have.
It's a very weird game to pick if you're a Penn State fan because more often than not, you don't like Notre Dame and you definitely don't like Pitt. So it's a toss-up. Maybe you root for the root for the refs, maybe for the field to implode, like in Batman.
I mean, it is Acrisure Stadium, so the field is bound to be dog shit. Probably an intriguing game. I don't know if there's much credence to it or not, but number 24 South Florida, who is fighting to be in that playoff, travels to unranked Navy midshipmen. They're 7-2. Losses most recently to North Texas, who looked like they were going to be a potential playoff team as the Group of 5 representative, and then they got their teeth kicked in last week against Notre Dame. USF's a 9.5-point favorite. I don't know if Navy can win this game. It's a 12 o'clock game on ESPN2. As a YouTube TV subscriber, of course, I will not be watching unless they strike a deal. But even still, I'm running this weekend, so definitely won't be watching the noon game. But, excuse me, I think it's intriguing. I think USF is probably on upset alert. Navy can probably cover that 9.5-point spread against South Florida, but if you're South Florida, you need to come out and make a statement, and I don't know if that's going to happen, but I still think they win.
I like USF too. Navy is a tough team to play no matter what, and I think that's always fascinating. All the service academies are always interesting to play, but I think USF handles their business, and they got to position themselves here for the rest of the season and potentially a playoff berth.
Certainly. All right. Number 11, Oklahoma travels to number 4, Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Alabama's a 5.5-point favorite. I don't know if Oklahoma has what it takes. I think Ty Simpson's really gotten it. I think he's really matured this season as it's gone on of late. I really think Alabama could knock the doors off of Oklahoma in this one.
I think Alabama's got it too. You know, DeBoer's got them rolling. Simpson is a top tier quarterback in the country right now. You know, we don't know what you're going to get from John Mateer in Oklahoma. He hasn't really been the same since his injury. So, I mean, I got Roll Tide and hope Kalen DeBoer wears his black sweatshirt.
Number 21, Iowa travels to LA and takes on number 17, USC Trojans. USC is a 6.5-point favorite. I think I'm going to have to ride the Hawks again. Crushing, tough loss against Oregon. I don't know if Jaden Mayava is for real. Hot and cold. Looked good against Nebraska last week, but was it Nebraska? Sorry, I'm getting my weeks mixed up. Looked bad against Nebraska. Looked good against Northwestern. I think Iowa's defense is probably better than both of those teams. We'll see what he can do against an actual real defense. And I'm not very hopeful. It is a 3:30 game on Big Ten Network. So Iowa doesn't have to worry about any sort of weird clock issues. I think the Hawkeyes can get this one done.
For the sake of us agreeing on all 4 picks before this, I'm rolling with USC and the Trojans. Lincoln Riley has a chip on his shoulder about Big Ten scheduling. I think, maybe they ride that in, but I do think that they have a lot more athletes for the Trojans than on the side of the Hawkeyes.
Fair enough. Last game, number 10, Texas travels to Athens to take on number 5, Georgia Bulldogs. That is the 7:30 game on ABC. I did go out and buy an antenna this week, so I could watch. So my wife could watch the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Thanks again, ESPN YouTube TV. Georgia is a 5.5-point favorite. Texas is number 10. Sure they've looked good of late, but I don't know if I can buy in yet. 5.5. Athens, Georgia at night. This could get ugly in favor of the Bulldogs.
I like Georgia here. Texas wouldn't be a shock, but Kirby Smart this time of year usually is when the Bulldogs are playing their best football.
Yeah, and I just can't trust Texas yet. I don't know why. I think I'm just scar tissue from earlier in the year.
You got that PTSD. I understand completely, Kevin. Any parting shots?
No, I'm good. I need to be positive this week. Got a big race on Saturday, running the half marathon in Richmond. Definitely I'm going to break 2 hours. We'll see if I can break 150. I don't know about all that, but.
While you're running, I'll be on the sidelines at St. Francis doing some instant replay stuff. Best of luck, Kevin. We wish you the best. Make sure you're healthy enough to record Sunday night. And we look forward to hearing all about your race. You're running for those who really just choose not to.
Yeah, I can definitely be healthy enough. By all means, on Sunday, I'll want to be sitting in the chair. So,
well, good. You'll be done at plenty of time to watch Penn State and Michigan State battle for the prestigious Land Grant Trophy on CBS at 3:30. For Kevin Quigley, this has been Jarrod Prugar on the Lasching Out Podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in on the Nittany Sports Now Network.